The American Association of University Women Educational Foundation and the Dayton Historical Depot Society present Living in Dayton, a local production by Dayton residents that documents the lives of women from early Columbia County families that shaped the community of Dayton, Washington. Following this interview is information on how you can purchase copies of this series, Living in Dayton.
My name is Marion Keith, and I was born in a very small town, Whitebird, Idaho, which I will tell about when we go back to my heritage. In 1913, I was a twin. My twin sister didn't live, and I'm sort of a miracle because I only weighed 1.5 pounds, and look at me now. We came back to Dayton in 1957 to teach school. My husband was a teacher, and so was I, and Mr. Nelson was very thrilled to get a pair of teachers. And the reason that we came from Idaho to Washington was because Washington was at that time allowing teachers to buy back 10 years of experience and only pay a very small fee for that. So that gave both Bruce and me some extra years of experience, which we were anxious to build up because we had both been away from teaching for a good many years.
When you came to Dayton in 1957, and you were able to get jobs right away, they wanted you to teach here. You told me you had a large class group of 8th graders. What was that like?
Yes, I came to Dayton as an 8th grade teacher and had 42 students in my classroom, and you had to go sideways to go up and down the aisles, but it was a wonderful year. I came that year having just had cancer surgery, and it was a real challenge to me, but I could never have asked for a more wonderful bunch of kids. They supported me 100%, and to this day they'll come up and say, "Gee, Mrs. Keith, that was a great year." And I'm sure that probably I put forth every bit that I possibly could. We moved to Dayton, and we lived in a house on Paddock right next to where Amy and Mark now live. And we had our daughter was a senior in high school when we moved here, which was a very difficult move for her. But she had come from Lewiston, a school of 300 in her class, down to about 50 or 60 in her class. It was quite an experience for her, but we adjusted well. And our son was in the 6th grade, and he was very, very interested in 4-H and animals. So immediately we started trying to find a place in Columbia County where we could move and have him have his cattle that he wanted so much to have. So after 2 years, we were able to buy about 3 or 4 acres just below town. And I think it was the old Fine place. It was an old apple orchard. The apple trees were almost all dead. So Bruce had been in the construction business after the war. Having gone into the Seabees, he came out a very good carpenter and followed the construction business for about 3 years. So he decided then to build a house. It was interesting because there was a little tiny house on the property, and he decided to use that as the nucleus of the new house that he built. We lived there for several years, and he decided it was too big a house. Children were both gone. So we sold it and moved across the street, and we were going to hit our fortune by building houses for the construction people who were coming in to build the dams. Lorraine and Jim Harding now own the place that we built on the old Fine property.
How about other community organizations? Mary, I know you're a member of the PEO and have been so for a while.
Yes, when we first came to Dayton, I had just recovered from cancer surgery. And so I limited myself very much with 42 students at school. I would come home pretty tired, so I did not get very involved. So all I did was church and school. I taught Sunday school at the Methodist Church, and we have always been very active members of the Methodist Church. And,
your pay wasn't very high, but...
And the first year here, our superintendent was Carl Nelson, and he was very, very anxious to get Bruce and me to come here because teachers were very scarce. And but when we came down and interviewed, he said, "But you know, Mrs. Keith, I can't pay you as much as we can pay Mr. Keith, even though you have had more experience than he has, because that just wouldn't quite be fair." And we didn't even question it. So he was always a little higher on the pay scale than I was. But I think my pay the first year was $4,000 something. And I finally got up after 27 years to almost 10,000. And Bruce, of course, was high school principal, and he retired 2 years before I did. And Dayton had been awfully good to us. We have been very, very active in all community activities. It's been a wonderful home for us and our children.